Hey guys, Happy New Year. Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Hi, if you're new, my name is Tori, and tonight I'm going to be sharing with you my top 5 reads of 2018. There is a feather on my nose. So 2018 was a crazy year of me basically not reading anything. I'll go over my Goodreads stats in a minute, but most of the stats that I accumulated came towards the end of the year, because from like March until November, I just really was not reading anything, which is just so crazy and so unlike me. I just totally fell off the reading wagon. If 2018 taught me anything, it taught me that when I'm not reading, I am actually really cranky. You know, I usually like read to unwind, and when I wasn't doing that, it's just I felt just kind of frazzled and all over the place. So 2018 really helped me realize that reading is like definitely my comfort area and my comfort zone. So definitely the lack of reading led to the lack of videos, but please know, guys, that I am not going anywhere. 2019 is going to be our year, and it's good to see you again. So first, I'm going to share with you guys my Goodreads stats for the year. I ended up reading 7,581 pages over 20 books. The shortest book that I read was Midnight at the Electric by Jodi Lynn Anderson at 259 pages, and then the longest book that I read was Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi at 525 pages. The most popular book that I read was The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. And the least popular book that I read this year was Until the End of the World by Sarah Lyons Fleming, and that was a post-apocalyptic novel, and it was actually a lot of fun to read. I've picked out the top 5 books of the year, and they were not difficult to pick out at all. They seriously just jumped out at me because they were just all fantastic. I had a great time reading all of these books, and actually 2 of them, the top 2, have become my favorite books of all time, and I rarely say that. So let's go ahead and get started. These are ranked, and we're going to start at number 5, which is Midnight at the Electric by Jodi Lynn Anderson. I just read this book like the week of Christmas. Actually, I finished this book on Christmas. Yes, I finished this book on the 25th, and it just instantly became one of the best books that I read this year. We have 3 different characters in 3 different time periods, and normally I'm not a huge fan of multi-narrative books, but this was really, really good. So in one time period, we have Adri in the year 2065, and Adri, she's from Miami, and she has been selected as one of the few people to travel to Mars, to live on Mars, and it's a one-way journey that's going to be the rest of her life. And Adri is the type of person, she just doesn't allow herself to get close to people. She doesn't know how to relate. She doesn't have any friends. She doesn't know how to relate to people. Her parents are gone. So she's just a very closed off person. So when the time comes for Adri to finally start getting her things together to go to Mars, she actually has to go live with a really distant relative out in Kansas just for the last couple of months before she leaves, just to get her affairs in order. And she's closer to, I guess, she's closer to the facility that will like send them up to Mars. When she arrives in Kansas and she arrives at this house, the very first night there, she discovers postcards and letters of just people who have lived in the house before. These letters have been in the house forever, and she starts reading them, and she finds that she may have more in common with the strangers in these letters than it first appears. So she opens the box of letters, and then we dive into 1934, into this girl named Catherine and her story. And Catherine is documenting her story via diary entries. Catherine is just, I love her so much. It's during the time of the Dust Bowl, and it's just, these dust storms are just making everyone ill. Her little sister is really sick. And at this point, Catherine will just really do anything she can to protect her sister and to save her life. And so the sicker Catherine's little sister gets, the more she just starts losing faith. But then this fair comes into town called the Electric. And one of the attractions there basically states that if you put your faith in this, if you believe hard enough on this and you do X, Y, and Z, then you'll live forever. So then in Catherine's time period in 1934, Catherine finds a stack of letters to her mother from a girl in London from like the early 1900s. And so then we have Lenore, that's her story. And she is basically trying to get to the States to see her friend who she hasn't seen since they were children. And then you have her entire journey. And so these three narratives are just woven through time. And it's just, oh my gosh, it's so, so, so good. This book is tiny. So I just read it. It's only 259 pages. It's the shortest book that I read this year. But there is so much heart and just so much to think about crammed into such a tiny little space. And I loved every minute of this book. It is so slow. It is the slowest book I think I've probably ever read. You just have to take your time with it. It can seem a little boring sometimes, but there's so much to it. And I feel like I just am contemplating this book way too much, probably more than the author intended, but it's just, it's so good, guys. I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars, and it was one of the best books I read this year. Coming in at number 4 is The Good Daughter by Karin Slaughter. I consumed this book in too short of a space, and I had a headache for the next 2 days. This book is about two sisters, Charlie and Samantha, and the novel starts when they're both like early teenagers, maybe like preteens. And this horrific event happens that just completely shatters their life, their worldview, everything. And then so fast forward about 30 years later, and one of the sisters, Charlie, a lawyer now, and another horrific event happens that, why am I laughing? This is not funny. Another horrific event happens. I'm just thinking about like the book and I'm just smiling because it's so good. Another horrific event happens that kind of brings Charlie back to her past and has to make her kind of confront the things that happened when she was a child. I don't know why I fell in love with this book as hard as I did. This book is not for everybody. It is gruesome. It is like some scenes are just so hard to get through. What I love about Karin Slaughter and what I've noticed and from reading her books, she handles relationships so well. I'm not talking about like relationships with your significant other. I'm talking about like familial relationships, like sisters and children and parents. And it's really good, guys. But please be warned, Karin Slaughter her last name should tell you everything you need to know about her. Like she's really hard to stomach in some places, but I really truly enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. Number 3. See, now we're getting closer to the top and I'm like getting happier because this was fantastic. And that is Neverworld Wake. You can see that by Marisha Pessl. Some of you probably already know Marisha Pessl. Her novel Night Film came out a couple of years ago, and then her first novel, Special Topics in Calamity Physics, I have unread on my shelf, and I'm really excited to get to it after reading Neverworld Wake. I didn't have too many expectations of this going into. I'm gonna put this down. You can't even see. I didn't have too many expectations of Neverworld Wake going into it. I just thought, oh, the author of Night Film has another book out. I'll get that. It's so twisty and so strange that you just have really no choice but to go along with it. It's about this girl named Beatrice, and she's just finished. I believe she's either finished her first year of college or like she's on like a Christmas break or something. Or no, I think it's summer break. So she finished her first year of college, and she returns home from college, and she ends up going back to this old estate that she and her friends used to hang out at when they were in boarding school. And mostly she's just going there to bury old wounds and just finally have some peace because her boyfriend Jim passed away their final year of boarding school. So she goes back to the estate or the mansion, and she finds all of her friends there, and they're kind of shocked to see her because communication between all of them has been kind of non-existent for the last year. Beatrice gets kind of pulled into this night of just activity and excitement and all that stuff. And so on their way back to the mansion from a night out on the town, something happens that just kind of changes the course of their lives. Neverworld Wake was brilliant. The concept of time is handled so well, and it's just almost genius. Yeah, I can't even talk about it because the thing that happens is the kind of the catalyst for the rest of the book. So telling you anything else outside of like just the basic premise would just be giving way too much away. But just know this was really good. I did end up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars, so not a complete 5 stars, which is interesting that it still made it into the top 3 at a 4-star. And the reason for that is there are a lot of cliches in here, and I'm not a huge fan of reading like cliches and similes and things like that. I hate when I read something and it's like, her hair was like or he sounded like and there's a mention of like all these celebrities and pop stars, and that doesn't always sit well with me. Like when I'm reading a novel, I don't really want to hear about she looks like Paris Hilton or something like that. So anyways, I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I'm just excited to read more from Marisha Pessl in the future and get to her first novel, Special Topics in Calamity Physics. So now we have reached the final 2 books of 2018. You really can't go wrong with either one of them. The Lonely Hearts Hotel by Heather O'Neill. My gosh, that was really loud. I'm sorry. This book is just, what? The Lonely Hearts Hotel, we have 2 characters, Pierrot and Rose, and they're orphans in Montreal in the early 20th century. And while they're there, they develop this really unique friendship, and they design their dreams together and their goals, and they have so much that they want out of life. And so that's why I say that their friendship is unique, because they're like planning their life out together of all these cool and creative things that they want to accomplish together. The 2 of them basically outgrow the orphanage, and they're forced to go into Montreal and just make their way in the real world during the Great Depression in really cold Montreal winters. So it's just, that's so much easier said than done, trying to go out and make a life for yourself in the midst of all of that. Life just kind of takes a toll on both of them, and they just both have their own dark descents into a life of drug abuse and theft and sex and all this and just everything. And man, I'm just getting goosebumps like talking about it. And so they go through all that, and then finally later in life, by some miracle, their paths cross again and they're brought back together. And they still try to ignite their old childhood dreams together. This is such a beautiful and honest and raw book. Like, it's just, Heather O'Neill's writing just fits so perfectly with it. It's not lavish or over the top. It's so bleak. I loved everything about this book. And now we have number 1, the best book that I read in 2018, and one of the best books that I've read of all time, and that is If We Were Villains by ML Rio. Man, this book, I want to do like a video about like books about groups of friends doing things they shouldn't be doing. It just perfectly sums up this entire book. But my gosh, it's so good. So okay, I'm just gonna stop rambling about it and tell you what it's about. So we have this main character named Oliver, and he's been in prison for the last 10 years. And so finally, on the day of his release, the detective who put him in prison is like, okay, you're going to tell me everything that happened, because I know when I put you away 10 years ago that you were not truthful with me. So what happened all those years ago? And so we flash back 10 years, and Oliver is in his final year of school, of college, but it's not any college, no, because why would it be? Oliver attends this special artsy, creative, like, school, and it's just all very exclusive. So Oliver, he's a part of this group of students who are Shakespearean actors. And that's, like, the only thing they perform. They only perform Shakespeare plays, okay? That's what they do for their college credit, basically. And something happens to one of their group members that just kind of sets the events in motion that eventually lead to Oliver's arrest. And so you're flipping back to the present, to the past, and just learning what went down with this group and how they basically all disintegrated into madness, basically. Oh my gosh, it's so good. But what I love about this book, what I absolutely love about this book, the characters sometimes talk to each other in Shakespearean quotes. I don't know a thing about Shakespeare other than what I was forced to read in high school. Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet. My Shakespeare knowledge is extremely limited, and I don't just sit around and read Shakespeare for fun. I really don't care for his plays. That being said, when the characters start speaking to each other and shit, there comes a point where the tension in the group is so high, and the stakes are just so high, and they start shouting at each other in Shakespearean quotes. I got chills all down my arm, down my spine. It was so well done, and it's just so good. Props to you, ML Rio. And the crazy thing is, so every Shakespearean play has the different tropey characters, the hero and the temptress and the villain, of course. Each character in this group of students always is assigned to a specific role. Just, over the course of their college career, they've always played the hero and the villain and the temptress in these Shakespearean plays. But those personas in the plays start spilling over into their everyday lives. And it's, oh my god, just talking about this book makes me want to reread it. It was so good. If you guys don't pick up anything else I just mentioned in this video, you should put this one on your list because it was pretty darn fantastic. So of course I ended up giving this book a 5 out of 5 stars. It was the best book that I read in 2018. Favorite book of all time now. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys had a fantastic year. I look forward to just a year of great content and book recommendations and all that fun stuff. So I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys.